Hi, Peter from Mango, and welcome to Compliance Conversations. We've brought together Mango partners from around the world and asking their opinions and get their insight into policies and setting them, and if there is any real value. What is the best way to determine if a policy is understood?
Yes, interesting. You've got to really test the understanding. So it's all very well to have them displayed, communicated and given out, but the best way to determine that they're understood is to actually ask for feedback and ask the questions of the employee. What does this mean to you? So it's a management by walk around, really. Is one way of doing it, is to actually go to the employees and ask them what their understanding is, and test it in the field. You can't assume that they'll understand because you've sent it to them. Obviously, we can do some e-learning and questions and answers and scores around that. But the best way to do it is for them to put it in their own words back to you. What does this mean? Rather than reading it out. Some companies would actually, in the past, have employees remember and say off by heart the quality policy. So they'd be able to sing it at the morning assembly, but that's not very good when you don't have a clue what it means. So asking them to tell you what it means in a different set of words is really one way to do it.
This is the hardest part. It's the most challenging part for most businesses. So obviously you do the very basic stuff, like you check for understanding of the policy at the time of induction. But that in itself, is just the initial first check. What's required is the ongoing engagement and reinforcement with people at all levels throughout the business over an extended period of time. And it's about matching the day-to-day behaviours that are demonstrated by people in the business against the requirements of that policy. If the management or the supervisors, team leaders or other people in the business see behaviours within the business that are not in keeping with the policy, then it's important that people act on that. Because I guess a policy that's sitting on a wall somewhere, it may be the best written policy ever existing, but if it's actually not enforced on a day-to-day basis, then the words mean nothing, and people within the business will actually view it and see it that way.
The best way to work out if they're understood would be to actually talk to the people in their business and find out whether their behaviours and whether the way they talk and the way they communicate and what they hold important matches with what's in the policy. There's no point saying in the policy we're going to uphold the greatest environmental standards in the world, and then when you talk to people in their business, say, we don't even recycle. To determine the policy is effective and understood is you've got to engage with the people in the business and see whether they follow what's in it and whether they understand it. If they don't understand what's in it and it doesn't match what their beliefs is, the policy is just a worthless piece of paper that you hang on the wall.
For me, one of the critical elements that we're driving with a lot of our clients at the moment is consultation and participation of workers. Now, I know that's incorporated into the ISO 45001 standard, but it's nonetheless important to anything else that we do within an organization. First off, workers or their representatives should be involved in the development of the policy. So once the policy is developed and workers are then having sight of it, there should be nothing new. So in terms of it being understood, everybody or their representatives should be involved in the development of the policy. Obviously, it's approved by management, and then it should be cascaded through the organization through a variety of different training mechanisms, be it induction or employee onboarding or contractor onboarding. So for me to ensure that it's understood, because it's one of those vision documents that's important to an organization, when I'm auditing, I'll go around and I'll ask workers a whole lot of questions, and I'll say, do you have a policy? Okay, yes is the answer. Well, where will I find it? Well, it's on the notice boards over there, or it's communicated to me during induction. Can you tell me any of the key things that you understand about the policy? And if the worker can speak to me around some of those high-level values that the organization has committed to, I will then have a sense that they have participated in it or it's been understood by them. So they have to understand the key values of that policy for me to determine it's been understood.
Well, to me, this is very much going to be like many of our other education training activities that we go through. It's really going to depend on the who and to some extent the what that you're trying to teach people. So obviously we could have our policies that we really want our employees to really understand, Somewhere in an induction document, there might be the opportunity for people to put snippets out of it into introductory videos and those sorts of things. Then sort of moving forward, looking at building them into like training topics. So you might, for example, have, something that I'm interested in is obviously manual handling and ergonomics. You might build some of your policy elements into that training, for example, just so that they're reinforced in the other training courses that we do. Then, of course, how you deliver that's going to depend on the topic. So it might be, online platforms versus face-to-face toolbox talks, and all that will depend more on the worker and the environment that you're working in.
That's actually a really good question. And I'm not sure I have the perfect answer. If I'm really honest with you, I don't know if I could say to you exactly how it's going to be. I think often it depends upon the organisation. The important thing to recognise with a policy is it plays absolutely no purpose unless you can identify that your audience have understood it and recognise what the expectations are. So there are, of course, multitudes of ways of doing it, portraying it, notice boards, sending it, giving it in inductions, having it in an electronic system, putting it in a document pack. There are a multitude of different ways that will work, but none of them actually will give you any kind of guarantee that it's been read and understood and people know what's expected of them. So my personal opinion is I always go back to the audit process. I actually always believe a form of internal audit. One of the best ways to do internal auditing is not looking at a document. Do you have a quality policy? Tick. Actually, that plays no purpose because you've no way of knowing if that quality policy is effective or not and known by people. So therefore, using your audit process allows you to go to people and speak directly to people and kind of adjust your questions in such a way that do they understand the quality policy, and more importantly, do they understand what the purpose of it is and what they have to do about it.
Another one would be site observations, sitting back and observing them. Are they working in a way which is in line with the policy? Not everything will be perfect, but you can soon see if someone's keeping their area tidy or something like that, and you go, they are applying themselves to what the policy's intent is. That it might say, there might be a line that says, we will have a clean and healthy workplace. Well, if you're going to go out to see someone and they're sweeping, they're tidying, they're taking pride in their work, then you can sort of say is that they're probably a tidy person, but they are in line with the policy, versus you go down the road and you see a whole pile of people doing the complete opposite, and then you know that the policy's intent has not been communicated. And it's not their problem, it's actually the management. They're bridging that thing from who's my audience, what is the document saying, have I got a disconnect?
I would say it's talk to people, ask them what they know, and see what's happening out in the real world. And that will tell you if those policies have been understood and if they are working.
Best way of making sure your policy is understood is to start with the people who are going to be involved with it, actually getting involved in helping create the policy for a start. So if you can bring them in before you kind of lock it in stone, so they're part of that conversation, that's going to help. And then it's about having conversations with the team. So rather than just take it out, stick it in the wall and walk away, we have a policy. Get your teams together and have a bit of a chat about this is what it is, this is what we mean by these words, and this is what we're looking for, and have a conversation and take questions and take feedback, and if need be, tweak the policy again so that it's easier for the people.
Really just by interviewing people, talking to people. One of our audit techniques for external auditors, or if we're in a compliance role within a business, to work out whether policy is actually understood. And it's a really important question because we often see, here's an induction, we've put the policy briefly up on a PowerPoint, do people actually understand? I think number one, if we're that internal compliance person, let's use the technique of interviewing. Let's talk to people, not necessarily in a formal audit, just informally, in a more formal process as well, is our best way of detecting whether there's some awareness and understanding of what we're aiming for, which is the purpose of our policy. I don't think people need to be able to recite the policy word for word. That's not important. Do they broadly understand what we're aiming for,
what the organisational expectations are under our safety, quality or environment policy.
I think in terms of communication of the policies, the best way is to cover that during induction. So during induction, you need to get the employees to read the policy, but also have a questionnaire. So it's no different with other competency that you want to confirm whether the person has understood. So if you just take few critical bullet points out of that policy and create an assessment from that, and then you can have an assessment on your during your induction or as a refresher every 12 months or 24 months and say, what does the company stands for when it comes down to reporting of accidents? Let the person answer that question. Or what is our commitment to continuous improvement and how we do it? So couple up, or if it's a quality issue, in terms of, customer feedbacks, what does a company stands in terms of customer feedback and satisfaction? Have a bit of open questions, or in some specific industries where the literacy is not as high, it could be, multiple choices, some level of engagement from the staff to actually to demonstrate their competency and understanding of those policies in a written form.
Thank you, partners, and hopefully to the people watching this, you got some value out of this. Of course, you can always go to our website, to the partner page at the bottom. You'll find the contact details of the people who participated. Thank you very much. Cheers.